The game we will be playing today is Sweatshop. The game tells the story of the factory manager, Yu, who works his or her way up the corporate sweatshop ladder. The game teaches the player how a sweatshop might work in the real world. The first thing you do is pick a name for yourself. You come into the game and you select the first level. A pop-up comes up that explains what you'll be doing in the game. You'll be starting out as a trainee manager at a factory for clothing, which is supplying garments to a store called Crymark. Later, you will start working for different companies called Top Sham and Maul, M-A-U-L, Mart. The sweatshop conditions get worse as you continue the game. When you begin the first level, you meet the boss of the factory. He's a very emotional man. He's different than many characters that you might come across in other games. He gets furious, he cries, he also curses. You find out that the past trainee manager has just quit, and you've been hired to replace him. All of the workers, except for one at the factory, have also left. So you meet the only remaining worker at the factory, who turns out to be a child worker. You are directed to hire a new hat maker in this level by selecting one from the top of the page and placing him near the conveyor belt. Each hat maker costs the factory money. The greater the skill set, the more the worker costs. For example, worker robots, meaning non-human workers, which you can access in later levels, cost the most, while child workers cost the least. We learn that as the clothes move along the conveyor belt, the workers will begin to assemble it. Every time a piece of clothing is completed, the factory earns money. You then use the money to hire as many workers as you want. The objective of the first level is to assemble 5 hats as quickly as possible. If too many items make it to the end of the assembly line without being completed, you'll have to restart the level. When the game starts, you drag and drop more workers to the conveyor belt and they begin assembling the clothing. When you drag or drop a worker, however much space the worker can work will be highlighted in green. If you want the belt to move faster, you can click the arrows on the side. The faster you make the belt go, the more money you will make, but the conditions can become harder for the workers. When you complete a level, a pop-up with your scores will show up. Your score will either be a bronze, silver, or gold trophy, depending on the quality of clothes made, meaning how many were completed, how fast you completed all the garments, and how much money you had left over when you finished the level. So the way to get the best score, or the gold trophy, is to have minimum amount of workers, or workers who are at a lower level, like child workers, working as fast as possible. On your summary page, you'll also see a for real fact about sweatshops around the world. The game attempts to teach you real facts as well as show you how a sweatshop works in the real world. On this page, you can also look at your stats. Your stats will keep track of how many levels you've completed, how many workers you've hired, how many workers were injured or killed on the job, how many were refreshed, how many features were bought. In later levels, the conveyor belts will become rusty and dangerous. There will also be electrical problems that will start fires in the factory. These can cause your workers injury by chopping off their arms or setting them on fire. Workers can die by injury or dehydration. Once a worker has died, they will turn into a corpse that then becomes a ghost and cannot be moved, meaning a new worker can't be placed there. To keep that from happening, you have to fire the injured worker before they die. To refresh a worker, you can use features such as water, fans, bathrooms that can be bought and used, but they do come at a cost. Reviving a worker can keep them from dying and help them work faster. You can also upgrade a worker by educating them, which will help them work faster and more efficiently, but it also costs money and they can only be upgraded to a certain level. Your stats page also shows your karma level. Your karma is determined by which trophies you have. For instance, to be an even-handed manager, you will have mainly silver trophies. You can also be seen as an evil or a good manager. The karma scale is used to try to elicit an emotional response from the player.